Okay, so China, for the most part, we would call it an authoritarian government. Now, the question is, what the heck is an authoritarian government? What is authoritarianism? There's going to be a real simple way to distinguish between democracy and authoritarianism. Simple on paper, hard to do in real life. Sometimes people will call, for example, we'll call authoritarianism a dictatorship. And sometimes people will say something like, oh, Trump's a dictator, or Obama's a dictator, or something like that. And that's not exactly true, but what we want to say is it's a kind of a blurry line between democracy and authoritarianism. So what's sort of our easy split between these things? And then we can sort of look and try to figure out how real life actually works. The main difference between democracy and authoritarianism, and obviously we would say things like, well, democracy has elections. That's true. Some authoritarian dictatorships have elections too, but they're not really elections like we think of them. The way to think about this is there are no institutional checks on the power of the leader, or leaders, maybe we could say on that, the party if it might be. But institutional check, what I mean is it's built into the system. So we've talked about this with, say, American democracy. Like we have separation of powers. President Trump can't do anything he wants because the Congress can check his power. That is an institutional check. It's built into the institutions of government. Another one is elections themselves. If we don't like what the president's doing, we can just unelect him. And that is that elections themselves are institutional checks. So when we're talking about a dictatorship or an authoritarian government, what we mean is there's nothing in the system, in the institutions of the system, that can stop or check or limit the power of the leader. So some examples might be like one-party government, China and North Korea. Now, I'm going to put a little asterisk next to North Korea, even though I got him over here hanging out with these two guys. They look super happy to be with him. But with North Korea, I'm going to leave that a little asterisk because we're going to talk about this with totalitarianism. Again, blurry lines, but for now, one-party government, there's really only one party. If there's multiple parties, they all report to that one party. That one party gets to decide who you vote for. So they might say you get to choose person A or person B, so you can't have an election, but it's still going to be all chosen by the party in the first place. So it's not really a free election. Military dictatorships are also a really common thing, coups d'etats that happen. Sudan used to have this. They tried to mellow out a little bit. Thailand, again, it's like that. A number of countries in Africa have had military dictatorships. The military takes over and just doesn't turn back over power. Coup d'etat means just you're overthrowing the state government. And then exceptional circumstances. Sometimes you'll have a democracy where there's a real problem. Let's say, like, I don't know, the coronavirus is sweeping through. And to maintain law and order, maybe the state has to do some more things that will maybe challenge liberties, challenge your rights, all that kind of stuff in order to maintain law and order, to get through this emergency, these exceptional circumstances. So like a civil war or something like that, the government might say, you know what? You usually have these rights. You don't have those rights anymore. You can't stop me because I got the military. Sometimes those are temporary. Sometimes those turn into long-term things. But democracies can turn into dictatorships because they can be used in exceptional circumstances to remove these institutional checks. And that's what the whole thing is about, is these institutional checks on the power of the leaders. So, how to become a dictator. Let's say that you get tired of being an accountant or a psychologist or whatever, and you decide, I'd like to become a dictator. Well, this is your lucky day, because I'm going to teach you how to be a dictator. This is good stuff. Here we go. Here are the things you need to do to become a dictator. Number one, you're going to want to keep the opposition quiet and powerless. And you do this by essentially saying, I'm going to maintain law and order. So people start taking the streets and protest, maintain law and order. Keep them quiet, keep them powerless. Make it seem like they're the ones that are messing with law and order, and then you just sort of step in and do that. Now, how do you do that? That takes us to number two. You can arrest some of the opposition. If you arrest if you arrest all the opposition, that's just wasting time. Just arrest some of the opposition, and the others are going to recognize that they don't want to go to jail too, and so they'll keep quiet. What you don't want to do, you don't want to kill them. If you kill them, you create martyrs, more people get upset about it. You just want them to disappear into the system. They just got arrested. Don't worry about it. It's fine. You just don't want to be the one that gets arrested too. So now that you've seen a few people get arrested, maybe you'll back off as well. When I say arrested, like, who gets to decide what's legal and illegal? You're the government. You get to make those decisions. So create some criminal charges if you need to. If there's not something easy, if you don't catch them breaking into a liquor store and stealing things, then just create some criminal charges. Like, just say they're corrupt, or they were loitering or whatever. You're the law. You're in charge. There's no, if you want to make sure there's no limits on you, just remove those who would put limits on you. And this is a way to do that. So that's one of the ways to do this. And if you start seeing the opposition start getting arrested, people start raising the red flag about are they removing the limits, the institutional limits to government? All right. Number 3 thing you're going to do. Now, in normal times, this doesn't work very well. You're going to need to use the media to generate emergencies. Make the people think that they need you to step in to create law and order, which one of the things you're going to want to do then is to make sure you have control of the media. If the media can write and talk about anything they want to do, that's no good. So as you see freedom of the press and some other things start to go away, you can start to see signs of a growing dictatorship, or at least it might be moving that direction. Even better is that the state just straight out owns the media. So the United States government owns Fox News, and then whatever gets on Fox News is going to be from the government. So that's the ideal. Just get rid of all that free media and make sure the state owns everything. Another thing that's going to be really important is charisma. You're going to need somebody at the top, somebody cool. A cult of personality, meaning somebody that people just want to follow. They want to sort of embrace this person. We talk about cult of personality a lot in terms of this was talked about when Obama was first elected. Like, did everybody know what Obama stood for? Not really, but they liked the idea of what Obama was bringing to the table, this cult of personality. Same thing with Trump. I don't really know what he stands for, but I like that he's going to Washington for me. This cult of personality, this charisma. You have that in a leader, that's going to be really important. If you have a dud for a leader, good luck. Nobody wants to follow, somebody that's not dynamic, charismatic. All right, keep moving. You still got to be a dictator. So a few more things you're going to need to do here. You're going to want to foster the habit of rule by decree. Rule by decree just means essentially, it's not that we pass laws, it's that I, as the leader, say, here's what we're going to do, and now I'm going to put the police and the military and everybody into doing it. That's rule by decree as opposed to rule by law. So one way to do this is just gain control of the legislature. You can make sure that when they pass laws, they're just passing whatever you tell them to. If that you can't do that, then just work around the legislature. Just do things. If nobody stops you or can stop you, then you get to define what you're allowed to do. You get to set your own limits. And again, the whole thing about this is no institutional check on the power of the leader. So if I go around the legislature or I control the legislature, it's no longer a check on my rule. And if I can just work around those institutional checks, there are no institutional checks, I'm a dictator. One more thing you're going to, is it one more thing? Two more things. One more thing. One more thing is control the local party leaders. You're not the only person who wants to be king. So what's ideal is you be king. King's not the right word. You be the head dictator and make others little dictators around you who have their power because of you. So one of the ways we talk about this is patron-client relations. Essentially, almost like if you ever watch mafia movies where the godfather basically says to the people down, in the chain of command, you get this power, you have this power for me, and as long as you support me, I'll support you. Patron-client relations. You give me what I need, I'll give you what you need. So I give you favors or official positions, and you give me loyalty. So, who's going to be in charge of the military? I'm not just going to put the best guy in charge of the military. I'm going to put the best person who is super, super, super loyal to me. Loyalty to me is more important than whether they're competent at their job. If you're not loyal to me, you're not going to get an official position. You're not going to get these favors. You're going to be pushed out of things, maybe even arrested. And who's going to be left in charge of the government? All the people in the government who could put an institutional check on my power, love me, or are loyal to me, or owe me something, and so they're not going to put an institutional check on my power. Here's the bottom line. If you're a dictator, this is what you're aiming for here. Here's the key. Other people, other groups believe that it is pointless to act, so they don't. Every time they've tried to act, they've got arrested, they've got ignored, they've got worked around. So don't even bother. That's what I like. And this is a term, that's what I like. If I'm a dictator, that's what I like. This is a term that I want you to think about here. Demobilize. I don't want to get people excited to do things. I want to make sure they're not doing something against me. That's all. I don't care if they stay home. I don't care if they grumble to themselves about me or whatever like that. I just don't need them standing out in the streets or in the institutions and trying to stop me. Demobilize. That's the idea there. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is totalitarianism. And one of the key things that I want you to think about is if authoritarianism is about people, let me try that again. If authoritarianism is about getting people demobilized, in other words, just believing that there's no reason to do anything to stop me, then totalitarianism is much more about mobilization. I want people actively out on the streets saying, me, I love you. And that way, anybody who's not doing that is sort of removed, not by the state, but by society. You can watch this next video about North Korea and just see how this is sort of the element of what's going on there.